It was the most vicious political battle in the history of Kenya. I'm sure most Kenyans remember the drama we were all treated to when then President Uhuru Kenyatta fell out with his deputy, William Samoei Ruto. And most senior analysts I know agree that this is by far the most vicious political battle we have ever experienced in the history of Kenya. You know, there are some older Kenyans who think the falling out between Mzee Jomo Kenyatta and Jaramogi Oginga Odinga in the 60s, there are those analysts who are very sure nothing would ever come close to that. However, now it is unanimous. The Uhuru versus Ruto war was very serious. By the way, allow me a quick aside. You see, most people are not aware that the Jomo Kenyatta versus Jaramogi Oginga Odinga political battle was not personal. The families of the two founding fathers of the nation were still very close and remained close throughout the 60s and 70s when the Odinga name was not politically correct in the country. We were even told in 2017 that young Raila used to like carrying young Uhuru on his back, on his back, was in fact very protective of him. And remember, the very worst thing that happened to Jaramogi Oginga Odinga is that he was put under house arrest. He was never taken away to detention, never ever. So definitely, it was not personal. But this Uhuru versus Ruto war was very, very personal. Now the reason why I bring it up is that last week I was kicking myself and telling myself, Chris, have you slowed down? Have you become old? How did you miss this one? I was really kicking myself. How did I miss this very obvious one? What am I talking about? Well, let me share the information I came across that caused me to doubt myself and my analytical skills. The gist of that information is that the war between Uhuru and Ruto is far from being over. What that means is that it is ongoing. Why did I not see the obvious? That personal battles never end just like that. Never. And let me quickly add, this is not about history. It's not. Because if the battle is ongoing, then obviously there are things which have happened locally politically because this battle is ongoing. And there are things which are set to happen in the future, very near future, because this battle is ongoing. It certainly did not end with Ruto winning and becoming president of Kenya. It did not end there. Let me give you some additional information some of us may not have. At the height of this war, we can't call it anything else, there was a time when President Uhuru Kenyatta was returning to the country, and he made great effort to completely avoid Ruto, who had come to the airport to welcome him back into the country. Believe it or not, at one point, a whole President Uhuru Kenyatta was running at the JKIA in order to avoid all possibilities of meeting Ruto, who had come to welcome him back into the country. That is how personal it was. You see, as humans, we are not all the same. There are those people who are obsessed about keeping up appearances and will insist, will go to great lengths to show people everything is okay. There is nothing happening. While in the background, and then there are those people who cannot stand hypocrisy, pretending. They can't stand it. Yeah, and that is Uhuru Kenyatta for you. On the other side of this war, when Ruto took over as president, all his initial moves were targeted at Uhuru Kenyatta. For instance, he approved all the Court of Appeal judges Uhuru had stubbornly refused to approve. He did that immediately, became president. Friends, this thing was very personal, and is still very personal. Now, together with that information I received that this battle is still ongoing, there was some other shell-shocking information which dwelt on the very intricate plan Uhuru Kenyatta had of dealing with Ruto once and for all, once Raila becomes president, because that was the plan in 2022. And indeed, I have produced a highly sensitive special report detailing all that, and even detailing Ruto's secrets that will leave you speechless. Not to mention the things which are still happening as we speak, mainly because of that very, very personal duel between Uhuru and Ruto. Yeah. In case you're interested in that information, please stick around, please stay with me, and I will give you details towards the tail end of my show today on how to get hold of that super sensitive, mind-blowing special report. Now, we have had plenty of clues all over the place to prove that this battle is ongoing. Some of you will remember that very recently, Farouk Kibet, a very close aide of Ruto, came out and said that the retired president's benefits and the money he receives should be scrapped, halted. Why? Because he's still very actively involved in politics when he's supposed to be retired. He has left the presidency. Do you remember that one? And I have to admit, the day Farouk Kibet uttered those words, I was puzzled. I was wondering, what is it that Uhuru has done that has so angered the Ruto inner circle? And I looked all over the place, and I was not able to find anything remotely suggesting that the Ruto people would be so provoked that they would want to touch Uhuru money. Well, it is emerging that actually retired President Uhuru Kenyatta is still very active in Kenyan politics. And I believe we all know that Secretary General of the Jubilee Party, Jeremiah Kioni, is one of those characters. And you will remember that Kioni has been pushing very hard for Fred Matiang'i presidency. And you see, Fred Matiang'i got this reputation when he was a CS for getting things done. And so it is easy to see that Uhuru still sees Matiang'i as his best bet for dealing with Ruto after Ruto leaves the presidency. It is easy to see that. In fact, the retired president has quite a handful of other proxies, very active in local politics, who are pushing forward his agenda, and especially his bid to make sure that he has the last laugh in this battle with Ruto. You know what they say, when two elephants fight, it is the grass that gets most damaged. We, the ordinary people of Kenya, must bear the brunt of this ongoing war that will not stop until one person has been completely defeated. That is the political reality. I am sure by now you have been able to see that one of the reasons why this is so relevant to current politics is because Uhuru is very determined to play a major role in the Ruto succession, okay? And to have a huge influence on who will be the next president after Ruto. And of course we know that Ruto's regime cannot survive for much longer. It's crumbling. And therefore this is very relevant to our current politics. And indeed will help any analyst solve many mysteries which may be unsolvable without the information I've just given you on my show today. It is important to note that even as Uhuru has proxies fighting in Kenyan politics, he also has characters that he avoids like the plague. Now I'm about to give information that many of you will not believe, but I assure you is correct, 100% correct. Information that will shock you to your bones. You will remember that in 2023, Kalonzo Musyoka invited Uhuru Kenyatta to a fundraiser somewhere in Ukambani. You'll remember that. At the time, they appeared fairly close. And then it appears that something happened. And these days, Uhuru is keeping his distance from Kalonzo. So what is this that happened? I believe what happened is that Uhuru discovered that Kalonzo is in fact, wait for this one, a Ruto proxy. And I believe those who have carefully studied Ruto politics and know the man will believe this much more quickly. Because they will already know that Ruto is a guru at having supporters who are on the other side, who appear to be fighting him, but are actually on his side. And when push comes to shove, will always side with Ruto. There are people who already know that, but unfortunately, most of us are still in the dark. And most of us continue to remain in the dark, even as the telltale clues keep on popping up all over the place. For instance, why is it that a number of Wiper governors appear to be so close to Ruto? How can that be possible when Kalonzo is strongly opposed to Ruto? Just ask yourself that question. Wavinya Ndeti, if you go to Kambani, Machakos, insiders will inform you she's very close to Ruto. In fact, there was a problem linked to her recently about huge sums of money that were intercepted somewhere. Remember that one? And that problem went away. Who do you think helped Wavinya Ndeti to solve that crisis? And then we have the Makueni governor, Mutula Kilonzo Jr. Most of us will remember that during the Azimio Maandamanos, the Makueni governor was always missing. Why? In fact, in virtually every press I can remember that was called to castigate Ruto, Mutula Kilonzo was never there. Never ever. And so as the Wakubas continue fighting each other, we ordinary Kenyans suffer the most. And one of the ways we are really suffering is because of the dead economy. Things are very tough. Oh yes. I think that one is very obvious. And they're getting tougher because Finance Bill 2025 is coming. Hey. And the truth is, this Finance Bill 2025 has a lot of things that the government is very desperately trying to hide from the people that are going to do great damage. Oh boy. Oh boy. So what should Kenyans do? Should we just give up? Should we just sit back and wait for things to change? And nobody has any idea when those things will change? Because you see, the damage that has been done by the Ruto regime on the economy is not going to be fixed quickly. It is going to take years before we get back to that place where Uhuru Kenyatta left the country. I'm afraid that is the truth. It is nothing but the truth. So, tutafanya nini? What do we do? Now, I don't know if you know this, but the very successful concept of a supermarket is an invention which is very recent. I don't know if you know that. And even more super fascinating, the invention of a supermarket, the modern supermarket, happened during a time of great economic depression. Did you know that? I found out this fact recently, and I was more than shocked. Allah? If you manage to get a little time, please research on a character called Michael J. Cullen. This is the man who is credited with being the inventor of the modern supermarket that we take for granted these days. Yeah? And his trade name was King Cullen Grocery Company in the United States of America. Let me not bore you with that story. Instead, let me put it like this. This guy, when the Great Depression started, was an employee who had nothing. But when the Great Depression ended, he was a multi-billionaire entrepreneur. Yeah, he resigned from his job and invented the supermarket and became super rich. That's the long and short of it. Which means that it is very possible that in these economic hard times we're going through, there are some people who will come out of it at the end very prosperous, very different. And that is why I'm still highly recommending my documentary, which I started putting together in the year 2019, titled How to Survive and Even Prosper in a Dead Economy. Now you can see details on the screens right now. Those who have already taken it in are saying that it's very entertaining, but also very informative and very comprehensive, because it even includes ebooks. Okay? For the better Kenya that we crave for, may we have many Michael J. Cullens coming out of these hard times that we're going through right now. Now, very quickly before I go, I want to play you snippets from my latest highly sensitive special report that reveals some shocking secrets of the Ruto regime that will enable you to understand very clearly why these people are behaving the way they are. Yeah, and you'll also understand many crazy things that have happened in our country, in the motherland, in recent times. Just listen in as you see the details of what you need to do to get this valuable information, as well as all my other previous special reports. I'll be back shortly. But we also know that something very strange happened immediately after she had been stopped and possibly arrested. Monica Kimani was allowed to make a call, and she made just one call, and within a few moments she was released with whatever she was carrying and allowed to proceed into the country. Now, how did that happen? Let me answer that question with the following statement. This DCI operation that stopped Monica Kimani at the airport was not a mission to arrest, and she was naive enough to make it. She should never have made that call. That call, that single mobile cell phone call, cost her her life. Now, with this information, we now understand many other things which happened immediately Ruto came into power. One of the first things he did, you will remember, was that he completely dismantled George Kinotti's DCI. Brutally, ruthlessly, and with speed. And at the end of it all, George Kinotti was out in the cold, and there was a brand new DCI boss, appointed and supported by William Ruto. Now, I will not speculate, but what I'll do is I'll tell you what I would have done if I was the newly appointed stooge, sycophant head of the DCI. The first thing I would have done would have been to go and get all the evidence that had been so much painstakingly put together by Uhuru people and George Kinotti. As head of the DCI, I would have access to that. I would have gone and gotten the whole lot of it and destroyed it. We also understand now why very early during the Ruto presidency there was talk of extending the term of the presidency from 5 years to 7 years, and this talk did not go away. In fact, a crucial piece of evidence. Now, you're only an M-Pesa message away from getting your hands on this information. Yeah, only Kenya shillings 2,999. You can see the details on your screen. Please move quickly, because this offer is going to end very, very shortly. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.